Let's check. Yes, I think now there is audio. So let's start by chanting Om three times. Let's take a deep breath in. And if our eyes are closed, we may open our eyes. Knowledge sheet number 57. Surrender and responsibility. So for those of us who are used to the Zoom sessions, I thought YouTube was a little more accessible, easier to join, and it stays for longer time. So that's why the reason to shift over to YouTube. Please feel free to put in your questions, comments in the chat. I'm actually looking at the chat also as I do this session. So I would love to interact with you using chat. Okay. Surrender and responsibility. Knowledge sheet number 57. Setting up a time bound goal gives direction to the life force. Imagination is essential for this. Most people have a small imagination who have a small imagination and are stuck with that causes frustration. But if you're a devotee, you say, let thy will be done. And then you will step lightly to the goal. You will take it easy. We have to make a distinction. Some people say, let God do everything and surrender. And others say, I have to be responsible. Surrender is saying, let thy will be done. And thy will for you is to take responsibility for the whole world. Now, this has been a conflict, a confusion, maybe a theme for contemplation since time immemorial. So, responsibility and surrender. If I'm surrendering, now the typical idea of surrender is I stop doing, you start doing. I stop doing, you start doing. And unfortunately, the word surrender has, in the English language, got the connotation of defeat. But in Sanskrit, oops, but in Sanskrit, when you look at the word surrender, surrender comes across as samarpan. So, like the audio probably went off for a while. When I say I surrender, then I say, well, I'm not going to do anything, it'll come back on its own. But then if I say, okay, There's something higher at work here, but let me do my thing. Then that's taking responsibility. So, taking responsibility and surrendering actually go hand in hand. And Gurudev gives a very beautiful insight. Says setting up a time bound goal gives direction to the life force. When there's no time bound goal, then there is no direction. Then we tend to say, okay, when it happens, let it happen. Lack of responsibility comes in without a time bound goal. So then Gurudev says, surrender is saying, let thy will be done, and thy will is to take responsibility. When you say, let thy will be done, that there is a higher power that's taking care of everything. Well, that higher power wants us to take responsibility. When we think of it like that, then the burden gets taken off and action starts happening. It appears to be opposing, conflicting in nature. In fact, they are two sides of the same coin. The more you surrender, the more responsive you become. One who is irresponsible cannot surrender either. When I feel responsible for something, that's when surrender can happen. Now, this seems very contradictory. When I take on more responsibility, then I'm able to do everything that I'm doing, and I realize that there is much more to life than only what I do. Have you had this experience that maybe you took put all your efforts to do something, and at the end you actually feel, well, now I've done my best. It's up to the universe to make it happen. Why is someone irresponsible? They're lazy or fearful or both. If you're lazy or fearful, you cannot be in love. Total responsibility is total surrender. It's a little hard to chew, but this is the truth. People usually say either I take responsibility or surrender, but I tell you they go hand in hand. Suppose you're surrendered to the knowledge. That means you're committed to sharing it with others. You take responsibility to see that it flourishes. So if I say I am surrendered to this knowledge, I recognize that this knowledge has a say in life, that this is all powerful. Then it becomes my responsibility to share it with others. So I feel more responsible to want to share. You go to a great movie, you like it, you say, wow, this is so nice. This really made my day. So in a certain sense, you're surrendering. You're saying that has more power over me. That made a difference to my life. And what do? We say, hey, this is so good, you should also watch it. I come to a satsang and I say, wow, this is so nice. This has made a difference in my life. I think this is, and then we want to share it. So, wherever we are truly surrendered, wherever we can see the Lord, when I say surrender, what does it mean? It really means that I'm able to see that this has a say in my life. This has a say over things. There is lordship there. That's what makes us surrender, makes us experience surrender. So when you see the Lordship, when you see that there is something that's running the show, then you say, okay, I surrender. When you feel I am doing it, then you say, no, I'm not surrendering. I'm going to be doing this. But when you see that everything is part of this play, then you start feeling responsible once again. You start feeling part of it. It's like if I'm in an organization and I say, okay, I'm surrendered to this. This is really the organization that I'm, and then you start feeling part of it. So you start owning up all the different aspects. And that's where surrender can help to bring responsibility. It is surrender that truly makes us responsible. Question. The confusion comes with doership. Answer. Gurudev says, when you're taking responsibility and you find blocks, remember surrender. That gives you strength to move ahead. It releases you from the weight of doership. Responsibility is the dynamic expression of life in the present moment. This is for me an amazing, amazing insight. Responsibility is the dynamic expression of life in the present moment. Right now, life is dynamic, it's expressing itself dynamically. Right this moment, the stars, the planets are moving, so much is happening. The photosynthesis is happening somewhere people are sleeping, somewhere people are doing something. Enormous activity happening in this whole of creation. And responsibility is the dynamic expression of life in the present moment. At this point of life, at this moment, when I recognize that life is dynamic, it's not static, it's not slumber, it's not inertia, but the dynamic expression of life, then that is responsibility. Total irresponsibility is impossible for you, and limited responsibility makes you weak. A little water in the sun will evaporate, but the ocean never dries up. Limited responsibility tires you out, unlimited responsibility empowers you and brings you joy. And this is another very, very interesting insight. When I see that I take limited responsibility, then it tires me out. Say I am organizing a course, I say I'm responsible for this course, I have to uh, talk about it. I have to make sure that people register. I want to promote it. I want to let this reach out to each and everyone. So you say, okay, I have taken responsibility. So what do I do now? I have the ability to respond to this situation, and that's responsibility. Now, when I take this responsibility, then I start doing certain actions. I call people, I talk to people, I talk to some volunteers, I do so many things. And when I start saying that, okay, I have to do, I have to do, I have to do, it starts becoming a big burden. If I say, oh, God will do everything, I'm surrendered, Gurudev will take care of everything, and become inactive, then also something keeps biting me from inside, saying, oh my God, I should have put some more effort. But if you notice, when you start taking total responsibility, you start doing all the things, and at the end, something in you says, well, I didn't do anything, it all just happened. That is so joyful. And we have all experienced it in various aspects of life. Maybe you're playing a game, we're playing cricket when we were children, and say, oh, well, I'm going to give my best, I'm going to give my 100%. And then we played 100% and we enjoyed thoroughly. But if you played half-heartedly, you say, oh my, at the end of it, you feel miserable. Oh, I should have put some more effort. Or if you said, well, everything will be taken care of, somewhere that also pinches you. And if you said, oh, I have to do everything, and you've got so totally caught up in that, but didn't recognize that, well, some you win, some you lose, then also you became upset. So when we start looking at this life as a game, when we start taking more responsibility, then surrender also happens. And when we truly surrender, that doesn't bring inaction, it brings total responsibility. And I say, okay, बस मैं आपका हूँ, I belong to you. And then that actually brings much more in effort, isn't it? Great. Any questions? Please feel free to put it on the chat at any point of time. There's one more thing that Gurudev said, which is so interesting. He says we have to make a distinction. Some people say, let God do everything and surrender, and others say, I have to be responsible. Most people have when they have a small imagination, they're stuck with that. It causes frustration. But if you're a devotee, you say, let thy will be done, and then you will step lightly to the goal. So this is the key thing. When you're truly a devotee, when you say that, hey, everything is anyway being taken care of, then you don't sit idle. You say, well, I'm part of this whole game, and I'm so happy to be part of this thing. Let me do from my side whatever. Jai Gurudev, how do we know we have been responsible 100% or fully surrendered? Yeah. So if you find that, like Gurudev says, that causes frustration. If you're not surrendered, if you're not taking responsibility, you'll find frustration comes. And that's a very great sign, easy sign for us to figure out, am I surrendered or not? Is it responsibility comes first and surrender follows after that sankalpa? Both ways. In when we surrender, then if you truly surrender, if you're giving up, if you're experiencing defeat, that's not surrender. But recognizing a higher power, that's surrender. And recognizing that there is a higher power that's so loving, that's so caring, that's with you, then you say, hey, I don't have any problems. Come on, let me do this thing. That enables us to take responsibility. Have you noticed this? Maybe as a child, you went somewhere, you had to do something, and you said, well, if I only have to do it, oh my God, I can't do it. You wanted to reach up to those box of sweets and you couldn't reach out. But then you saw that mom was near, someone was near. You say, hey, now I think I'm going to get the sweets because I can tell mom and mom will get it for me. Do you notice when you find that there is some higher power, there's something that's more powerful than you that's ready to help you, you feel that inner strength and you say, okay, now let me take up this responsibility. So when you're assured of strength, then it's easy to take responsibility. And same way, when you're hmm, when you surrender, when you take responsibility, when you say, okay, I'm going to do this, then you recognize that I'm walking on this path. There is something that's helping me. There's something that's taking me ahead. So both go hand in hand. Yes, when everything is a game, sometimes you lose and win. When we start taking it as a game, then losing or winning doesn't bother us. But when you don't take it as a game, that's when losing or bother, isn't it? तो बात बस इतनी है, जितना जिम्मेदारी लेते हैं उतना हमें पता चलता है कि कुछ तो है जो हमें साथ लेकर चल रहा है। और जब कोई आपको यह आश्वासन मिल जाए कि कुछ तो शक्ति है जो हमारे साथ है, हमसे जितना हो सकता है उतना हम करें, उसके आगे वो देख लेंगे, तब हमको बल मिलता है आगे चलने का, तब बल मिलता है जिम्मेदारी लेने का। वेरी गुड। तो आज के लिए तो इतना काफी है। आप सोचिए, you can go through your own life if you're watching this video later on. Think of all the times when that you felt helpless, and then maybe something just came up and you were able to go through life. You can share it in the comments below if you have some experience. So this combination of surrender and responsibility, see how this impacts your life. How many times when we see that there is someone so loving, something so loving that's with me, and we are able to take more responsibility. Share it in the comments. At this point of time, I really have got caught up in a responsibility towards my husband, who's a patient now at home after staying in hospital for a month after a femur surgery. Got so caught up. Recognize, Kavita, that there is something that you are being helped, and that comfort will help you to do your whatever you're responsible for much more easily. Yeah. So, with this, with these few words, we'll end the session here for tonight. Every Tuesday, 9:30, we'll take a one knowledge sheet. I'll see maybe next week. Let me look for another random knowledge sheet. Okay, annihilate conflict. Knowledge sheet number 75, annihilate conflict. So we'll take that up next time. How to annihilate conflict? How do I go beyond conflict? How do I destroy the conflict? Conflict destroys us, but how do I destroy the conflict? That we'll take up next week, Tuesday nights at 9:30. Jai Gurudev.